this is David Richter with Simple CFO Solutions. This course is about less stress, know your numbers, and I'm a big proponent of less stress, more profit. So that's the name of the book that I have written too, and that's the name of this course because I want you to be less stressed in your business, and a huge portion of that is coming down knowing about your numbers. And when I'm saying know your numbers, I'm talking about specifically the financial aspect of your business, because in your business you need to know the numbers that you have on the back end where everything is said and done. Do you know if you're a profitable business or not? So that's really what this second course is about. So why do you need to know your numbers? Why is it so important to know your numbers? So let's get into that first. First of all, I want to tell you a little story. So I told you this is not going to be a boring presentation or course, so I want to kind of dive right into it with you. Back in the early 2000s, I guess even before I did my first deal in real estate, my dad was actually a part of a big company in downtown Chicago where they managed 2 high-rise apartment buildings. And they were right on Lakeshore Drive, and it was 2 beautiful buildings, over 500 units apiece, so I mean 1,000 units in total. So that's what he was managing on a day-to-day basis. He actually worked there for over 20 years. He started off as a security guard and worked his way all the way up. He worked his way up the corporate ladder, all the way to being kind of the manager right underneath the owner of the company. So if you know the EOS language, that's kind of like the integrator where he kind of ended up, or just in the business world, he was kind of like the COO of the company or of these buildings. And what I tell you all that because one day in the early 2000s, after working there for 20 years, he got a call that the owner wanted to sell the building. So they got prepared for that. They knew their numbers, so the owner was actually able to find a buyer and sell this building for over $100 million in downtown Chicago. And the new management came in. They kept all the old management that was there, so my dad still had that job there at the high-rise apartment buildings. But then, about 5 years later, this new company who treated everyone well and was still making that company grow, and those properties had a great retention rate. They were about 95% occupancy with a lot of people that stayed there for years and years. So it was a great building, a great place in downtown Chicago. But 5 years after that new company came in, they sold that building again and made another profit. But that time, the new company that came in actually kicked out all the management, and so there went my dad. And my dad said, easy come, easy go, 24 years, so he's kind of got that lighthearted nature to him. But after 24 years, just like that, his job was gone. And I just want to tell you that story because if you are an entrepreneur now, you've already taken that leap. You already have gone into that foray of being that business owner, doing your own business, struggling to get those deals, not knowing where they're always going to come from, not knowing where you might get your next deal, and you have taken that leap already. I don't want you to ever have to go back to a W-2 job. Knowing your numbers are paramount. They are so important because if you know where you stand, you can always pivot and adjust and go to where you need to go. But if you're in the dark about your numbers, you're in the dark about your business. Your business tells a story. I want you to know your numbers. And so I tell you that story because I don't want you to ever have to go back into that world where, hey, you had a great job for a long time and you never thought you would have to get a job again, but hey, you got to go back into that job, and where there's really a lot less security because you're not depending fully on yourself, you're depending on other people. So, and just the moral of that story too, once the new management came in, they went down to about 60% occupancy. So that's just a plug for your operational systems too. Make sure that if you're coming in and you're buying a business, that you know what the systems and the processes are going to take to make sure that you could do at least as well as the other business that was running there. So I just wanted to tell you that quick story because I really don't want you to have to go back to a W-2 job. So why do you need to know your numbers? Do you really want to be a W-2 again? Do you want to have to go back to a job? We kind of already talked about that with the story. How about your home life? This one might touch on a lot of people because when you go home, does your spouse or significant other that you live with, do they know where you stand financially? Do they know whether or not there's going to be a paycheck for them to go to the grocery store? Do they know whether or not you as the entrepreneur have a handle on your finances? Just think of how much less stress it would cause if you knew where you were, even if it's not the best case scenario where you are. Just knowing that gives you power. So I want you to say, in my home life, hey, I'm able to talk with my significant other where I am right now, and I can tell them, hey, this is where we are, this is where we're going, and this is what we're doing about it. Also, why do you need to know your numbers? Is this a business or a hobby? Because if you're just in this, yeah, I'm grinding out these deals, you're posting checks on Facebook to all the wholesaling houses full-time group or to the other groups that are out there, hey, is it just a business or a hobby? Because that check that you post on there, where is it going? Are you going on a trip? You made 20 grand on a wholesale deal. Great job, but did you use that 20 grand to now go out and just go on a cruise ship and you blew that and that was the first deal you'd ever done? I'm not saying you shouldn't reward yourself or never have a fun time, but I mean, if you want this to be an actual business, you're going to have to think about the end goals even before you start some of the implementations or your execution. You're going to have to say, is this a business or a hobby to me? Because if you want this to be a business, and a business that I define is something that can live on without you actually working inside of it, then you need to have those systems and processes for every single aspect of your business, and especially the financial part, because you need to know, like, hey, could we survive? How many months could we survive if everything shut down? Let's say we're doing a bunch of different marketing, but they all dry up and we have to pivot to another marketing sector of the real estate investing. Let's say you were doing postcards, but they're just not returning what they were before, and you have to pivot to something else. Would you be able to support the time where you might have to pivot and it takes a little bit of time to go to a different area? That's really what separates between a business or a hobby. You can look at your business and say, I'm running this like an actual business. I know the numbers where I am currently and what I need to make sure my business doesn't ever run out of steam. So why do you need to know your numbers? Number one, I don't want you to ever have to be a W-2 again unless you choose to be, unless there's just the absolute perfect opportunity for you to jump back into something, but I want it to be your choice. And then I want your home life, something that's very personal probably to you, whether you are married or not, or live with someone or not. There's probably people that depend on you, or you personally are saying, I'm going to do this because someone doesn't think that I can do it. So make sure, no matter what, number two with there for your home life, that could be any motivational factor that got you into this business. Why are you doing this? Why do you need to know your numbers? Because if you truly want to be able to say one day, hey, I have a real business, and either to the naysayers that said I couldn't do it, here's how I am doing it, and or to your significant other that's at home saying, what are we doing? Where do we stand financially? You can give them that reassurance. And then, like I said, business or hobby. Is this really a business for you, or is it a hobby? So what are the benefits of knowing your numbers? So we've talked a little bit about knowing your numbers, but what are the true benefits of knowing them? Number one, peace of mind. Peace of mind is huge. Like I said, this deals a lot with the actual knowing if you're a business or not, knowing that if your spouse or significant other at home, giving them the peace of mind that you know what you're doing, and then can you communicate clearly to anyone, whether they're inside of your business, outside of your business, where you stand, because knowing where you are can give you peace of mind. Let's say you know that you're in a bad financial area, and you say, how will that give me less stress or peace of mind? Because now that you know exactly where you stand, you're going to be able to take actions from there. So I'm huge on knowing your numbers for number one, making sure that you have that peace of mind, knowing where your business is. Because even if it's in a bad area, you could take it and pivot it and know and make decisions of what you need to cut or what you need to add. And you also know, like, hey, I know maybe if I'm doing a great job, this is where we stand and how we need to keep pushing forward and how we need to keep allocating our finances to make sure we're in business for however long we want to be in business or sell this business. So number one, peace of mind. Number two, build your wealth. I want you to be able to build wealth. I don't want you to just to sit back and say, well, that was a fun ride. I at least covered my expenses. No, I want you to build true wealth, because if you're building actual wealth, that means that you are impacting lives. That means that you have a purpose that's bigger than yourself. So I don't want you to not just to make money. I want you to make money for the sake of helping others. If you're just in it for the money, one day that's going to come crashing down in one form, fashion, or the other. I want you to build true wealth. And true wealth could be money and leaving that to your heirs or leaving that to other people, to charitable causes. That's why I love the groups that I'm a part of, because there's a lot of groups that I'm personally a part of that a big portion of building wealth is actually giving to other people. There's been people that I know that have taken mission trips over to Africa and helped build houses or provide clean water or wheelchairs or different things like that just across the nation and across the globe. So it's not just about this is your show and making sure like you're taken care of. number one, you need to make sure you're taken care of so you can provide for others. But number two, build wealth, build true wealth. The wealth that not only lasts your lifetime, but it lasts lifetimes of others too. So knowing your numbers really can help you, number one, with your peace of mind, number two, building wealth. And I want to give you another quote from Dan Kennedy. As you can see, I'm a big Dan Kennedy fan, and he has a lot of great quotes on knowing your numbers, because he's done over 30 years of marketing consulting. He even says that in this quote. Here's a fact from my 30 plus years of doing marketing consulting with business owners. Those making the most money, especially those growing businesses from small to big and getting rich by doing so, know their numbers inside and out, thoroughly, completely, and just can't be stumped by a numbers question. Those who can be easily stumped are usually poor or headed there. The fact is, in 30 years, with well over 1,000 clients, those who've made the most money and gotten wealthiest are the ones who know their numbers inside out, upside down, backward and forward, minute by minute, day by day. How powerful is that? This is someone who's been in the trenches, who knows for over 30 years that the people that make the most money and keep the most money are the people that know their numbers. So that means you know your numbers across your organization, and especially your financial numbers, knowing where you stand. If that doesn't motivate you to actually into action, I don't know what will. But I do know one other thing that might motivate you to action, and it's story time again. So anytime you see this, I usually have a story behind it. So it's story time. Now, there was a certain client that I was working with personally, this is from personal experience, where he really didn't know his numbers. He didn't know where he stood financially. He knew that he probably was making some money, but he didn't know where he was at the end of the day. So what we were able to do was clean up his books, make sure that he knew exactly where everything was going and where it was allocated to. And then we figured out something, that he was making profit, but in his bank account, it really didn't reflect that. Have you ever been there as a real estate investor where you said, hey, I just made 50 grand between a couple deals here, but I have no idea where all that money is. It just goes right in my bank account and goes right back out. Well, it was the same thing in this investor's situation, so you're not alone there. And what we found was that he had a lot of properties on his balance sheet, meaning he owned them as rentals, where he was very under-leveraged, meaning he was only into them probably 30, 40, 50%, where he could realistically, and what he was comfortable with was having a LTV, or loan to value, meaning like if a house is worth $100,000, he was willing to take a loan up to $75,000 or $70,000, in between 70 to 75% of what that house was worth. So he was able to pull out a lot of that equity, because what that showed us was that he was pouring a lot of his own money back into those properties, which isn't a bad thing. Let's just say I'm what you say there as the viewer taking this course. I'm way more comfortable saying I want to actually be under leveraged. I only want to be leveraged maybe free and clear properties, that's your goal, or you only want to be leveraged less than 50%. So your goals would maybe not be the same as his, but that might be a reason you don't have a lot of that money in your account. So what I wanted to tell you is we found his risk tolerance also for what he could realistically be comfortable with as a loan to value, because we know that in a recession, those valuations can really go up and down. So he was willing to take 70, 75% and pull almost $500,000 out of his company. So could you be sitting on $500,000? If you're a solopreneur, you might not be at that area, but one day in the future, you don't want to be saying, where is all my cash really going? Where is that cash in my account? I'm making money hand over fist. I know that I've made 20 grand per wholesale deal or whatever it is that you're doing. At the end of the day, you want to know where your money is going, and if you're pouring a lot of your own resources back into those properties. And that's exactly what he was doing. And so that was a great example of someone who we've actually helped say, what is your risk tolerance? Here's where you are currently. Do you want to try and refinance and take some cash out that's actually your cash that you've put into these properties, and now you can take that out, buy more properties? Basically, he can do what he wants with that cash, because now it's going to be backed by his real estate, and he can actually do whatever he wants now. He can go on these other trips to network with other investors. He can buy more properties. He could do whatever he wants with that money, because now that he can go out and actually take the money back that was actually his, but that he's poured back into his property. So that was just one example of someone where it was a client that could actually take about $500,000 out of his company to where he could actually use that for anything inside of his business. So I just wanted to give you that story. That was the power of knowing his numbers, diving into it and saying, but he had been in business for probably 5-7 years, doing probably 20 to 25 deals every year. So it's not like he was doing a massive amount of deals, but he had a pretty good sized portfolio and said, wow, look at where we stand. I know that I have this risk tolerance and can pull this out. So you might be sitting in that exact same boat. So I just wanted to tell you that was one of the things, that the power of knowing your numbers, really where you stand, could be the difference between $10,000, $20,000, $500,000, $1 million or more of where you actually sit in your current cash balances too. So another benefit of knowing your numbers, confidence versus confusion. I love this benefit because confidence really unlocks your decision-making power. Confusion shuts it down. Have you ever wondered that when you go out to a marketing appointment, like an acquisitions appointment with someone, and you're very confusing on what your offer is, or you don't know how to clearly communicate with that person, they usually don't end up going with you. They don't sign an agreement, and you don't have another property that you're potentially buying. Have you ever noticed that? Or on your website, that if on your website it's not very clear what you do, you buy and sell houses, or you help other investors, or whatever it is that you specifically do, that people usually don't go with you or choose your services, even if you're providing an option for to solve their problem. You know that you can solve their problem, but you're providing confusion in your messaging. Well, that's a lot with your numbers too. If you dive down into it and don't know your numbers and they confuse you, you're not going to take action. But if you are confident in the numbers that are on your books, and you know what your profit and loss is, you know on your balance sheet where your properties sit, and you know those different types of things, then that's going to actually give you the confidence to move forward on decision-making power. So where are we going to actually dive into the nitty-gritty of those things? Where are we going to actually say what is on your balance sheet or what is on your profit and loss? Maybe go through some of those things. We're going to, in the next several courses, go over that. So if you don't know what those are specifically to look for, I want to give you first why you should be thinking about knowing your numbers. What are the benefits of actually knowing your numbers? And that's why I wanted to give you those things in just this quick course, this number 2 module on the building a recession-proof business and the less stress, knowing your numbers. I wanted you to know why do you need to know your numbers and the benefits of knowing your numbers, because if you know those, it just puts power in the palm of your hand to be able to say, I can do what I need to do to make sure my business is recession-proof, no matter what the economic climate is. So maybe a couple questions you need to ask here at the end of this course. Do you know your numbers? This is to ask yourself. Do you know the numbers that you should know? Are you working with a profitable bookkeeper? And I might want to park right there for a little bit, because every employee needs to be profitable to you, whether it be a bookkeeper, or if you hire an admin, or if you hire even a virtual assistant or someone else to help you inside of your business. Everyone needs to be driving revenue in some way, shape, form, or fashion. And I don't mean that means they take sales calls. That means if they interact with anyone or they provide reports to you, they're doing it in a timely manner, or they do it in the way that you need to see it. Every employee needs to be profitable to you. But I'll get off my soapbox there a little bit. But as far as the financial portion of your business, do you have a profitable bookkeeper? Do you have someone in your business that's actually looking out for that financial portion so you don't have to go crazy diving into that? If you're just a solopreneur, you might need someone, that might be you at the beginning, but do you have a system that you can give a bookkeeper in the future to be able to say, hey, here's my system in order to be able to manage the finances. That way they can be profitable from day one for you. Do you have reports spitting out on a weekly or monthly basis? This is a huge one for knowing your numbers. Not only that, but do you know the reports that you need? And that's really what we're going to be getting into in the other courses, is the answers to some of these questions. Do you have a meeting to talk about your numbers on a regular basis? This is another huge one. Do you understand what's being said if you do have a meeting and how it impacts your business? So not only do you have a meeting about your numbers, but do you have that meeting, do you have takeaways? Is there something where you say, I can physically do something from here to improve our bottom line? Or there is something here that I know that will help us increase not only our profitability, but maybe help us to be better employers to our employees, or whatever the issue might be then and there, that you kind of dive into your numbers and figure out, okay, we're struggling in the business, we're not either spending the money we should on marketing, or we're not investing into our employees like we should, or this or that or the other thing. So if you look at your actual numbers and have a meeting, do you have something actionable from that meeting to be able to go back and actually have a good conversation with the other people inside of your business, whether they be employees or a leadership team, or if it's just you. You should be meeting to see, are your numbers lining up on a regular basis? Also, I wanted to tell you, do you have someone focused on your profit? I know that you probably are focused on your profit when it comes to your company, but do you have someone specifically? That might be a bookkeeper, a consultant, an accountant, someone who's on that side of the business saying, how profitable are you? What can we do to make sure that you are always going to be a profitable business? You might need someone to actually come in and be that accountability partner to say, hey, I know that you're doing a great job over here in these areas, but on the financial portion, we really need to dive into here, because if you don't get that portion buttoned up, you're not going to be in business very long. So I wanted to give you just a couple questions to ask yourself on the financial side of your business so you could kind of get a springboard into, if I can answer some of these questions or get a system in place to answer some of these questions, it'll be a lot easier on you to be a recession-proof business. So that whole second module was about knowing your numbers, why do you need to know your numbers, the benefit of knowing your numbers. Over the next couple courses, we'll actually dive into what does that realistically look like and how can you practically do it in a simple way. Because like I said, I've written a book and I go about this in every single module. Just if you want to order this book, it's a Less Stress, More Profit. It dives into this a little bit more, has more questions and whatnot. And this book doesn't make me money. I'm just trying to get that into your hands so you can say, hey, I can be a recession-proof business. But I'm David Richter, the Simple CFO of Simple CFO Solutions. If you need someone to help focus on your profitability, we can maybe help, so you just go to that website. But at the end of the day, do you have someone on your team that's helping you with your profitability? But not only that, are you accountable to you and to the other people in your organization, whether that be someone on your, like I said, a W-2 employee that you have with you, or your leadership team, or if you're a solopreneur, are you looking at your numbers on a regular basis? And I just wanted to say thank you very much for this second course, and I'll see you in the next one.